Okay, so I have something I need to talk about in regards a very insane, just utterly insane sentence. And it's this sentence. That that had might have that. And it has nine that's in a row, which I think is just utterly insane. I came up with this sentence myself. I'm sure somebody's thought of a way to have a bunch of that's in a row before, but for this, I came up with this myself. So I'm going to explain how this is a perfectly grammatical sentence, how you can have nine that's in a row and it's perfectly grammatical. And yeah, so the reason you can have nine that's in a row is because that has multiple different functions that it can do. That can be a pronoun, a conjunction, and a like clause opener, I guess. It can open a what's called a restrictive clause, I believe. So first, I'll explain like the how that can function as a pronoun. So that can function in a pronoun in that you could have a sentence like he had that. That is just referring to something, basically just anything that he had that, like that specific thing, right? And that can also function as a conjunction expressing purpose. So you could have a sentence like he begged for money that he might starve. It's kind of like the same thing as saying so that, right? It expresses purpose. It conjoins two different clauses, or like basically sentences, showing that he did this thing, somebody did this thing for the purpose of this thing, right? And that's so that can do that. And that can also open a restrictive clause, kind of like which. It's oftentimes synonymous with which. Um, Basically, you can say it kind of functions as like it opens a clause that like functions as an adjective. So you could say something like um, the things that he had, right? Or um, the ice cream that was blue, or something like that, right? Um, and so it can do those three functions. There's a lot more functions that it can do, obviously, but those are the ones that you just need to understand this particular sentence. So basically, and there's another thing you need to know is about invisible who which clauses. So there's a thing called who which clauses, or at least how I know them. And basically, it's like a restrictive clause, sort of like that. It's basically synonymous with a that clause, like I mentioned before, except it's invisible. And what I mean by it's invisible is that the who in the to be verb is implied. It isn't actually written in the sentence, it's implied. So you could have something like um, he, the ice cream man, right? I'm not going to write a full sentence with this, but you have this. So that the who was is implied. It says he, the ice cream man. Just pretend that says ice cream man. Um, so you're saying he who was the ice cream man. You don't actually write the who was, but it's implied. And that's basically the same thing here. That, the pronoun, invisible who which clause. So that which was that. Or, and then that, so this is the conjunction expressing purpose. So he had that which was that for the purpose that which was that which was that had might have that. So for the purpose that this thing that this other thing had, that this other thing that that had this thing had might have that, right? So that's kind of the sentence explained. I think that's just a really absurd sentence. I was really inspired by the sentence James, well, John had a better effect on the teacher. It's a really famous sentence. So I was inspired by that. But I think this sentence is actually a lot more interesting because it doesn't include any quotations. And I purposely did that because if you include quotations, you could basically have an infinitely long sentence. So I was trying to see what the maximum amount of VATs you could have is, while not having like an infinite or arbitrarily long sentence. Um, so yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm so glad that so many people saw my previously uploaded video. If you haven't seen that one already, it's about why we should start using that, and you guys should go and watch that one as well. And anyways, see you guys next time.